welcome back to another episode of the History of Fan Anime. I'm your host, William Chow, and in today's episode, since I figured it's Halloween, may as well do an episode on cosplay and the role that cosplay has in anime. So, as you see, we always like to dress up on things like Halloween, but I mean, why restrict the cosplaying and that kind of stuff for just Halloween? Why not actually have it on other days and have conventions where you can do things like dressing up and making different types of costumes? And so, as an anime fan, we always like to dress up as the different things and have our own little different tastes and characters of what we like to do. Now, Michael Jackson put on a big fad in basically the 80s and the 90s with basically a lot of apparel having zippers and that kind of stuff, especially with a lot of jackets with lots of different zippers. I was not able to get one of these type of jackets during the 90s, but now I'm able to do so. But when they were selling this type of material in the 80s, I did buy one of these jackets that have various different zippers and that kind of stuff in the shoulders and not. And one of the things I did was I took one of the Sailor Mars kind of a zipper pins and attached it onto one of the zippers of the jacket, and that was started a different type of craze of different things in our area. But that was one of the anime type stories that I have in relation to this type of jacket. Now, I did make some other types of costumes, which were kind of, intrinsic of things that happened in the 80s, and I can show you those and give you what their significance was in relation to the anime that they were. One of the first cosplay costumes that I decided to make, and we did it as a group, was we designed a bunch of Patlabor SV2 uniforms from the show Mobile Police Patlabor, and basically in conjunction between the Vancouver Japanese Animation Group and the group that was out in Abbotsford. We basically got together the designs to build this Patlabor uniform. And again, just like what most of you would do, you'd go down to like your Value Village and whatnot, find some secondhand clothes to build a mock-up, and then from the mock-up you would stitch together and make and cut to pieces what would normally be parts of your costume. And we put it basically together. And put together a uniform that we could use to take down to the San Diego Comic-Con and whatnot. Okay. Now the big help that the Abbotsford group helped me out in this case is these patches that we made. Okay. We got in touch with an embroidery service that basically took images and was able to basically take this image and stitch it onto and make these badges that we had for them. And what was really kind of funny is that when we were walking around the San Diego Comic-Con floor there, and I was just standing waiting in line for something, and I remember some guy came up to me and asked me if I was like an ambulance attendant. Of course, not an anime fan. See, the other thing that I'm wearing, instead of wearing the normal tennis cap that for example, Asuna would wear, I'm showing off one of the Orange Road hats that we made. Basically, just took the logo again to the embroidery shop there, and they basically stitched these straight into the cap. So I'll bring a closer up for that, so you can have a look at that. All right. So this is this almost is my first actual cosplay costume that I've actually constructed from scratch. In the early days of cosplay, it wasn't really easy to get something that was store bought and make it usable as a costume. But kung fu uniforms like this, you go down to your local, Chinatown, and you'll find something, similar to that, to this type of outfit. And of course, there was a lot of people that bought these kind of things, and you'd instantly be able to play, Ranma in many different forms. Because obviously you wear the black one, the red one. You can even do white ones, and it all become different types of martial arts type uniforms that you could wear for, basically ready-made costumes that you can wear at a convention or for your cosplay activity, and everyone would know that you'd be a Ranma. The other really easy costume to get is of course you go to like a martial arts shop and get a kung fu gi. Obviously, if you pick white, you can be Ryu. You can pick red, you can be Ken. If you get more of a sporty one, then you could be Guy. All these different types of variations all happen. But in terms of in the early ages, to get something like this very readily and quickly as a costume, yes, martial arts animes always tend to be very easy to get this kind of thing. Though obviously, if you're looking at the orange wraps and that kind of stuff, that's always very common and easily modifiable for like a Dragon Ball type costumes as well. So again, in the early days, this is what people would cosplay as, and and that's what the resources they would use to get them. Now, this brings on the other issue is, of course, cosplay does bring out the appreciation that you are an anime fan, but again, towards the industry as a whole, it doesn't help the industry because none of the money that you spend on cosplay items are actually going back to the companies themselves. Of course, as I just mentioned, when I built my Pat paper costume, I went to Valley Village, I went to different places like Michael's and different clothing type shops and that kind of stuff to find and get all the pieces needed to build the costume. I didn't actually have to go to and buy a Sunrise Bandai hat or gun or any sort of attachments or accessories. All those came from basically what I managed to build and manufacture from various different parts and pieces that I got from all these different clothing stores, as well as some parts and bits from like Radio Shack for like the microphone and that kind of stuff. So they're coming from other places. For example, this thing I got from Chinatown. Because this is the traditional Chinese, shall we say, martial arts movie type of clothing. Anything that, like, for example, that what Bruce Lee would wear or anything like that. Again, none of that sort of revenue is coming back from, to Viz or Kodansha for any of that kind of stuff. So again, it does show you that you are promoting and you appreciate the anime. It is not a money-making product unless they somehow decide to go to these costume people like Party Time or whatever to manufacture these costumes for, let's say, Halloween usage and then sell them to the mass public as, for example, Dragon Ball Z combat gis or something or whatever, and then be able to basically sell those in their stores. But that hasn't happened, and so that kind of revenue stream is not available. And for a lot of times, and a lot of cosplayers, they don't want to purchase that. They want to build it themselves. They want to try to get the items and manufacture them and kind of come up with them on their own. See how resourceful they are. And again, doesn't help the industry, but it is what seems to be very, very popular in North America. Not so popular in Japan. As a mass in terms of mass acceptance, but in North America here, the anime fans have really taken onto that onto the cosplay role and onto that sort of project themselves, and so much so that they've actually built an industry almost around that. Again, so in a future episode, we'll talk about the impact of how cosplay affects the industry and how basically the industry is growing in terms of how many anime fans we have, but why is the industry having so many different problems? So again, hit subscribe, hit like below, and then we'll get into that episode. All right, so until next time, see you again.